Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Early Edge. My name is Sia Nejad, otherwise known as the Counselor of Cash, and we've got a great show for you today. Of course, the show is brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. We're talking MLB playoffs. We're leaning into Thursday night football like we always do in these primetime games. Before we get to the stars of the show, let's see how we did. We've had a few recap screens in a row on the winning side, I believe. And here's another one, 5-3. Snyper, Amags, Buckets, both go 1 for 2, but the SportsLine picks get us over the threshold. 2 for 2 there, 5-3 overall. Won you a little bit of money yesterday, some money the day before, I believe some money the day before. Let's see if we can win some money here on a Thursday. Let's bring in the stars of the show, as I am operating from near the HQ studios here in South Florida. Mike McClure is here. He's operating from St. Louis. We got Snyper. We got Berg Bets. We've got PropStarz. Proppy, I'm going to start with you, man. We've got Thursday night football, a primetime game. We've got our prop show tomorrow at 1 o'clock. You know, today is the day where we really start getting going with football for like 4 days in a row.
Indeed. Yeah, good morning. I'm digging it. This is awesome. We're a quarter way through the NFL season. Got a matchup tonight. On the surface, doesn't look particularly amazing, but Mac Jones has played good football. Meanwhile, I think the Rams are a legitimate contender, one of the best teams, certainly in the NFC. So I'm looking forward to tonight and tomorrow. See you at 1 Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific time.
That's going to be a great show. I'll be in studio with Claudia Bellafato and Dave Rich, and of course, PropStarz. You'll be remote with us Friday at 1 o'clock. Sniper, speaking of big games, speaking of big matchups, your Cubs today, how you feeling in general?
It's interesting because it's not that I forgot the feeling, but it hadn't been in a real 2020 doesn't count. Hadn't been in real playoff games since 2018, and in 2018 was just the wild card game. I feel like I needed a refresher on that sense of dread that you have the entire game, especially when there's no clock in baseball. It's just different than it's just I remember after game 1, I texted my dad and brother and I was like, I kind of forgot that feeling of just a combination of sheer joy and relief all at the exact same time. So, and then yesterday was just hopelessness the entire game. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to today at least there's a pitch clock now. So it's not 4 hours. Now it's only like 2.5.
Bob, remind me, are you also a Cubs fan? I know you came to the show with a baseball bet. You may have something to say about this NFL game as well, but is it Cubs for you, Bob?
Unfortunately, no.
It's the Pirates.
No, I guess you could say the Pirates are my NL team, but I grew up a Yankees fan. I know, womp womp, but yeah, I root for the Yankees. But now that I'm in Pittsburgh, Pirates are my second team.
Well, okay, we've got a Yankees game tonight. How you feeling about that one?
Nervous as always. All right. Yankees are home run or nothing.
Mike McClure, I told everybody you are coming from St. Louis. We've got the FFT DFS show later today. We'll be doing that at 11. It'll be released around 12:30 or so. How you feeling today about Thursday night football?
Feeling good. As Proppy mentioned, it's an unfortunate situation for San Francisco. Anytime you have a team kind of beat up like that, backup quarterback, receiving core kind of beat up. But I'll continue to make the case that we've made on the DFS show is Mac Jones is not your average backup quarterback. He's a fringe starter in this league, has learned many different systems, and spent some time in some good systems. And I think he's in a great system now. You do still have the security weapon and blanket of Christian McCaffrey and a good head coach. So I think the game could be more competitive than some may think, but I do think the Rams are a very clear favorite still.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting the way this line is moving, and it really we'll lean into this game a lot. If you have questions about this game, let us know because we'll answer them throughout the show. Of course, we'll be answering MLB questions for you as well. But Mike, if you don't mind, let's start off. You've got an interesting way to attack this game. You're going to give us an SGP right off the bat, and it's a 3-legger. Talk to us.
Yes. How about the Rams to win the game? I think they're a legitimate team just as much as I think that the 49ers can compete. I'm pairing that with the under 54.5. Yes, this is obviously an alt number. I made the number down to 42 in this game, so very much lean under 50 or 45.5 if you want to play that as well. And then Puka Nacua, just 75 receiving yards here. Yes, that is still a big number for an alt number. However, not for this guy. He has been an absolute machine. I think the game will be competitive enough that Puka will still get his today. I wouldn't be surprised if he approaches this number in the first half of this game like he has a few times already this season. So plus 110. I made the price point on it minus 120 on this. I have this up to 55% in terms of how often this should hit. Certainly not priced like it at plus 110. So give me Rams money line under 54.5 and Puka Nacua 75 yards. All this over on BetMGM, who does have the best price on these particular three legs across the industry.
All right, plus 110. Proppy, go ahead.
Love that look from Mike. Also, just wanted to mention regarding Puka Nacua, him and Devontae Adams account for 64% of Stafford's passes. That is just a staggering number. Puka Nacua has been absolutely exceptional. The easy clear-cut favorite for Offensive Player of the Year so far. 4.25 yards per route run. If you cut that number in half, he would rank top 5 at the wide receiver position. So he has just been incredible thus far, clearly having a historic season as well.
Yeah, might end up being a very historic season. PropStarz, before we get to some baseball, because Bob, I want to get to your pick and Sniper, your pick. We got a lot of SportsLine picks with regard to football. I've got a prop that I put on SportsLine late last night. Proppy, hit us with your play, because anytime I see any sort of under on Christian McCaffrey, I think to myself, well, nobody's going to want to make this bet. And then I think to myself, well, that means it's a sharp play. So talk to me about a Christian McCaffrey receptions under.
Indeed, see, and I might add, I did fade Christian McCaffrey's rushing yards last week correctly against the Jacksonville defense. But yeah, we're going under 7.5 receptions. Basically, Puka Nacua is the only wide receiver right now in the NFL that commands a receiving line this high of 7.5. It's unbelievable. But McCaffrey, to his credit, has been the entire San Francisco offense. We know this offense is completely depleted, missing all the wide receivers and the tight end as well as the quarterbacks. And McCaffrey certainly making a massive impact, especially as a receiver. But what happens when the immovable meets an unstoppable force? And that's what you have with McCaffrey against this Rams defense. So first and foremost, this Rams defense is an elite unit. They've been elite since the second half of last season. That's carried over to this year. They're top 5 in EPA allowed per play. They're an excellent pass defense as well. Second in EPA allowed per drop back. And where they really thrive is stopping receiving running backs. They've given up the fewest receptions to opposing running backs. They run a ton of cover 3 as well, more so, I believe, than any defense in the NFL. And the focal point is obviously going to be Christian McCaffrey, who is the best receiving running back in the NFL. But again, we're talking about 7.5 receptions. That is an absolutely massive line. He's going to be keyed on by this very good Rams defense, again, that excels at stopping receiving running backs. I do anticipate McCaffrey still going to get some. 4 to 5 receptions is still a very quality outing. But again, 8 receptions is just a massive number. It is available at 6.5 on some majors at plus money. I'm comfortable playing it there for a half unit. I know it's 7.5 at a couple of books, though. So I definitely shop around if you have the ability to do so. Again, just a gargantuan number in what is a very difficult matchup for any receiving running back, especially when you don't have the weapons outside. As I mentioned, the top 3 receivers and the tight end. So all of the defensive attention is going to be on slowing down Christian McCaffrey. And again, that's really where he's done the majority of his damage this season, has been receiving. So I think the Rams are going to stymie him a little bit and really cover the flats and just do a good job to keep him under 8 receptions.
It's such an interesting note, because you're so right. They're going to scheme. And I don't know how easy it is to scheme receptions away from Christian McCaffrey. But to your point, obviously that's what they're going to try to do, Proppy. And that does lend itself to, if we believe in Mac Jones on any level whatsoever, it does lend itself to looking at the receiver group and saying to ourselves, all right, well, maybe 1 or 2 of these guys can shine, like your Kendrick Bournes, your DeMarcus Robinsons, maybe your Tonjes, or even if you want to go Sky Moore, MVS. Like, I think there are targets out there for those guys. And I know that Kyle Shanahan will properly scheme those guys perhaps in space as well. That's going to lead to my prop later on in the show. But let's turn the page just for a second to baseball. Bob, talk to me about, speaking of unders, talk to me about an under in this Padres-Cubs game.
Yeah, so I'm going to go Padres Cubs. I'm going to go under in this game again. First two games also went under. Hugh Darvish hasn't pitched great this season, but like I said in some of my other posts, that this is a new season. He's pitched 6 playoff starts for the Padres. Darvish has went 6 innings in all of those games, 6 innings plus. And while he's done that, he's also held his opponents to less than 3 runs in all 6 starts. He's backed by one of the top bullpens during the regular seasons with a 3.06 ERA. So far in the postseason, their bullpen has only allowed just 1 run in 9.1 innings, and the Cubs are only hitting 175 as a team through the first 2 games this postseason. The Cubs go with Jamison Taillon, who's pitched very well down the stretch after his injury, only allowing 2 runs or less in each of his last 6 starts, and the Cubs have won 5 of those 6 games. With this being a do-or-die situation, Craig Counsell won't hesitate to go to his bullpen quickly. The Cubs also had a top 5 bullpen in the NL this season. Wind is blowing in left to right. I'm going to roll with another under 7.5 runs, Cubs Padres.
Sniper, I know you have a play on this game as well.
Yep.
Any thoughts on the total?
Yeah, I like the under too. I can get more into it when I get into my play, or I can go right now, or what do you want to do?
I'll tell you what, I think this is a good point to go right now, because we can just we can hit the money line play and the under at the same time. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I've got the Cubs on the money line. I am hoping, maybe I'm coping, but I think the Cubs can score off of Yu Darvish early, and then I think the balls go to the bullpens pretty quickly. I think Taillon's probably good for 4, maybe get into the 5th inning, but I think the Padres are going to bail the first chance that Darvish gets into any trouble. So I'm hoping the Cubs grab a couple in the first. I saw somebody in the chat said no run first inning, and I was like, man, I could totally see the Padres and or Cubs scoring in the first inning. But I think through the middle innings and the late innings, runs are going to be very, very tough to come by. The Cubs, the only one of the Cubs' top relievers that threw in both games 1 and 2 was Andrew Kittredge. All their other guys are good to go for this. So if they get Taillon through 4 or 5, then they can go to Palencia, Pomeranz, maybe Theo Barr before you get to Brad Keller. I think that's going to be a formula for the Cubs to win the game, as long as they get that early lead and avoid having to play from behind against the Padres. The other thing I thought, again, maybe coping a little bit, because as I mentioned in the chat, I think you can make an argument Mason Miller has the best pure raw stuff ever in baseball. I mean, he's throwing 104 to 105 miles per hour. His breaking stuff is ridiculous. He has command. It's outrageous. But he threw in both games 1 and 2. He got a little bit overextended in game 2. Adrian Morejon threw in both games 1 and 2. His season high in pitches was 23 before yesterday. He got up to 30, or he got up to 33 in game 2. So I don't think the Padres can use both of those guys for so many outs in game 3 the way they did in game 2. Now, they have Jeremiah Estrada. Michael King in the bullpen will be an X factor in this one. Maybe they only let Darvish go 1 inning, and then they go with King for 2 or 3, and then they piece it together. It's going to be very interesting. I do think it's going to be very low scoring. I'm going with the Cubs. Not overly confident, but this Major League Baseball slate as a whole for me today is unbelievably unpredictable. If you look at that first game, Tigers Guardians, I would not be surprised if Jack Flaherty actually surprised everybody and threw very well. I would not be surprised if Jack Flaherty had a colossal meltdown and gave up like 6 or 7 runs in the first inning. It's anywhere on the board. The Guardians have a much better bullpen. The Tigers bullpen, as we saw in the 8th inning yesterday, is not very good right now. And then you go to the Yankees Red Sox. You've got 2 youngsters on the bump. You have 2 offenses that are very capable, but it seems like runs are at a premium in the series regardless. Aroldis Chapman can probably overextend himself in this one, but Garrett Whitlock, the Red Sox use a lot of bullets on Garrett Whitlock, but the Yankees bullpen is really, really bad. Look, it's all over the place in all 3 of these games, man. It's going to be really, really fun.
Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off of Sniper. I know that I faded Jack Flaherty a lot, and I wanted to do it, but for some reason, I have a gut feeling that Flaherty is the better option than Ciccone. Ciccone has been so hit or miss, so inconsistent. Just allowed 4 runs in his last outing. Then it was like 0-2, 0-7. So he could be hit. The Tigers have been, besides the little offensive explosion yesterday in the 8th inning, I think the Tigers have been performing better offensively than the Guardians outside of that 8th inning. So I lean Tigers. I really wanted to play the Guardians with their home field advantage and how awesome that crowd is. But I think this is a stay away game for me.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, sometimes the best bet is a no bet. Go ahead, Sniper.
I also wanted to point out, if you guys remember buckets, I won in showdowns each of the last 2 games because he was going against my Dodgers run line play. Remember last night in the first inning, the Reds took a 2-0 lead thanks to a dropped fly ball. Buckets texted me at 9:28, Reds in all caps with 3 exclamation points. And then at 11:36, he just typed back, never mind.
That is perfect. We actually have let's stay on baseball. If you have baseball questions, let us know. Let's look at the home run chart, because we do have one home run play per the Inside the Lines crew. It's Giancarlo Stanton plus 323, says the Inside the Lines crew, but plus 400 are the real odds. Sniper, any response to this?
Always a decent bet to go with Giancarlo, especially at those odds. So yeah, I'd be good with that. I think the Yankees probably would have preferred that in game 1 with the bases loaded and Aroldis Chapman on the mound. But hey, I'm sure they'll take it in this one as well.
All right. We're going to transition back to football, but if you have baseball questions, put them in the chat. And if you have questions about Thursday Night Football, let us know in the chat as well. We will get to those questions. And speaking of football, how about a no sweat token? BetMGM players will receive a no sweat token to apply to any bet on pro football. To use the token, make a pro football bet and activate the token. Receive bonus bets if the bet that was made with the token loses. Also, we're going to have first touchdown scores on this show. Get your stake back in cash if your first touchdown scorer scores second instead. Bet on any pro football player to score the first touchdown of the game. If you're right, you win. If your player scores second, you get your stake back in cash. Couple of great promos there. I love that first touchdown one. And we've got first touchdown scores coming up. And we have some questions that we need to answer. Somebody said, hey, I kind of like the under 45.5. Well, we'll see what SportsLine has to say about that right after this message from our partners.
Saturday kicks off at noon, and it's big time. First, Air Force and Navy face off in Annapolis. Then it's big time at the Rose Bowl when UCLA hosts Penn State.
We're back on the Early Edge, brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Let's take a look at the SportsLine picks. There was a question about the under, and Mike Tierney says, I like the under. 49ers Rams under 45.5, minus 110. And then, of course, Larry Hartstein has Kyron Williams over 67.5 rushing yards at minus 114. If you remember SportsLine, you got these picks a long time ago. Mike, let me bring you in here on that under. Obviously, in your SGP, you built the alt under of 54. Any commentary on just the regular under 45.5?
Yeah, certainly lean under there. I think that when you look at San Francisco, it could be difficult to move the ball. I think if you talk about what their game plan should be, is simply get the game to the fourth quarter as a one-score game is like the number one objective here. But it comes down to the number for me. 43 and 44, the two most key numbers in NFL totals. Talking about short weeks here. So, yeah, give me the under all the way to 44.5 would be the stopping point. I would guess it probably closes at 44 or even down at 43.5 later tonight. I think you're going to see one-way traffic on that total the rest of the afternoon.
All right. And Proppy, I do want to get your response to Kyron Williams, because I know a lot of people will be interested in Blake Corum. You remember from the prop show last week, I had his over. I liked his over rushing attempts as well. Those both hit. And I think Blake Corum starting to become a guy people are at least noticing is getting the rush attempt share is kind of growing week by week. But before we get there and before we get to everybody's questions, this is going to seem speculative, and it might be. And you know, Proppy, you know as well as anybody, I love these short receiver numbers, especially with like the likes of Matthew Golden, who can break one and you can ladder it and things of that nature. Demarcus Robinson is not Matthew Golden by any means. He's certainly not a burner or a speedster, but he is, in my opinion, the number one or the number two receiver on this offense now that Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings are out of this game. I think Demarcus Robinson at 28.5 receiving yards in a very likely negative game script where, yes, you're going to pass to Christian McCaffrey. The tight end might get some looks. Outside of that, it's Kendrick Bourne, who I will admit Mac Jones has a history with over at New England. So he might get his looks and he might beat his, it's around 39.5, I think, for Kendrick Bourne, his receiving yards. He might go over there as well. But in a negative game script, I really do think they trust Demarcus Robinson. The problem and the reason why people might think this is speculative is he missed the first 3 weeks. He was suspended. He missed the first 3 weeks of the season. Week 4, he was integrated, but really not that much. But that's part and due to the fact that, well, he hadn't played the first 3 weeks, and also Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings were healthy. Now you've got basically Demarcus Robinson in a must-play starting position. And one thing I want to note is that Kyle Shanahan had a lot of praise to heap on Demarcus Robinson in the offseason. Don't forget, they went out and paid this guy 2 years, $8 million, which doesn't sound like a lot, $6 million guaranteed, by the way. But that is a huge number compared to the receivers that are actually active on this roster this week. So I think they have a lot more faith in Demarcus Robinson than people think. Granted, Mac Jones is the quarterback here, but Mac Jones at some point in this game, he's going to have to throw it up. And I do think Kyle Shanahan's going to scheme all these receivers in space here and there against a Rams secondary that I think is very, very beatable. The likes of Emmanuel Forbes starting on the outside might get some matchups with Demarcus Robinson. I think we can have some success here with Mac Jones, particularly in a negative game script. Proppy, I know when it comes to plays like this, you know, you do side on the sort of the speculative range here, but anything to say about the 49er pass catchers?
Yeah, interesting game here. Obviously, we know Christian McCaffrey is the focal point of the San Francisco offense with such a depleted offense. But again, we're talking about Kyle Shanahan and Mac Jones, who's played well. So I do understand Demarcus Robinson likely being one of his top targets, pretty likely here. Kendrick Bourne, there's some familiarity. Jake Tonjes, I think, has a little bit of upside in this offense. We know tight ends in Kyle Shanahan's offenses typically do get lots of looks. I've been impressed with Tonjes. I thought he's played well in an ancillary role. So he's a pass catcher, I think, has a little bit of upside. Again, we're talking about a team with a low implied team total, completely depleted here. But I know PFF likes his individual matchup graded higher than any other San Francisco skill player. So that's one guy that I have my eye on here. But again, Mac Jones has to throw the ball somewhere. And I do think Christian McCaffrey is going to get the majority of the defensive attention. So DeMarcus Robinson does make sense.
Yeah, I will say that just so people understand, the Mac Jones passing yards prop is in, I think, the 213 to 215 range. His completions, I think, are in the 21.5 to 22.5 range, which is pretty high. And I think it lends itself to the idea that they're going to need to throw the ball at some point. Proppy, let me go to you on McCaffrey rush attempts. Joe wants to know, do we like the over 16.5 rush attempts? I don't love that personally.
No, I don't love that personally either. This does seem like a game where they're going to have a negative game script. While it is competitive, I do anticipate McCaffrey obviously getting a lot of work here, but just not something, again, I think it's an efficient number, frankly, is what it really boils down to. So, it's a stay away from me. I did want to touch on Kyren Williams, though, real quick, because Larry play. Kyren Williams is a coach's dream. He falls forward for 2 or 3 yards every single touch, and he does not fumble the football. He picks up what's given to him. He's not dancing behind the line of scrimmage, trying to break off big chunk plays and getting tackled at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage. He takes what's given to him. Is he very explosive? No, but he's very dependable. So I do see why in a game where they're 8.5-point favorites, obviously going to have some positive game script here that Kyren Williams, Larry does. I like that look as well. As far as Blake Corum is concerned, he does a lot of the same things that Kyren Williams does well. He's dependable, maybe a little bit more explosive than Kyren Williams, but yeah, does a lot of the same things, has a similar build as well to Kyren Williams. So they're interchangeable. The idea of having a 3-down back like Kyren Williams versus having specialists on the field is the offense isn't tipping your hand. When you have a back that can do everything, you're not necessarily showing the defense what you're going to do. Let's say it's a pass catching back or a guy who's just in there to run on 1st and 2nd down. So that's why Kyren Williams plays as much as he does. The coaches love him. He's going to be on the field a bunch. Might not be the sexiest pick, but I do like him to go over 67 yards.
Mike, there are questions relating, like Wu-Tang 416 has questions about Devontae Adams. As much as we like Puka Nacua, we did highlight, or I should say PropStarz highlighted that the share of targets, it's not just Puka Nacua. It is Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, although Puka obviously has a much larger share. Do we like anything Devontae Adams related, whether it's his longest reception, which honestly I'm not really in love with, but like his receptions? Do you think, like even from a DFS standpoint, would Devontae Adams be in the conversation for you?
I think he's fine. He certainly has the target share. He's an awesome threat, in the red zone. The question you have to ask yourself in this game is just how necessary is it for LA to keep pushing, and will they have enough success on the ground? I'm not going to speculate on anything on Devontae in this game. If anything, it would probably be the anytime touchdown, but the price point has moved so much at this point. So I'm going to stay off of it. It could be one of those weeks where, it's not going to shock me if he scores 2 touchdowns, but it also wouldn't shock me if we have 2 catches in this game, just simply out of necessity, right? They may not have to do much.
PropStarz.
It's also worth noting that Devontae Adams has a negative coverage score against the majority of the 49ers defensive alignment tendencies. So as far as the matchup is concerned, it's more favorable towards Puka Nacua certainly here as well.
We've got a lot of people watching. Hit the like button. If you're watching on Twitter, come over to the SportsLine YouTube channel. If you can stay on Twitter if you want to watch us. And make sure you're subscribed to this SportsLine YouTube channel. There's a lot of baseball questions, by the way, that we need to get to. I will say this. I like Blake Corum again this week. And to Mike's point, PropStarz, I think we could see, and again, we might be wrong about the game script. The 49ers, and I say we, I'm talking about the market. The 49ers could compete in this game. It's a division game, and Kyle Shanahan's a very gifted football coach. So we'll see. But I don't see a scenario where Kyren Williams and Blake Corum aren't getting a ton of work. So I think looking at those props make a ton of sense. We're going to get to first touchdown scores. We're going to get to more of your questions. Let's go to baseball real quick. Let's see. Sniper, do I run Rice back and Judge over 1.5 hits or RBIs?
Yeah, I mean, I like Judge, always like Judge. I know there's a narrative floating around him about how he ends up in the fetal position in the on-deck circle in the playoffs because he's so scared because it's the playoffs now. But I'm always going to like Judge. Rice, I want it. Connolly early is a left-handed starter for the Red Sox. I do think that Boone's going to play Chisholm and Rice, but it's still a lefty-lefty matchup is a little more difficult.
Igor says, Snyder or Berg. I'll go to you, Bob. Do you guys have a favorite prop, maybe a favorite player that you're focused on in this Guardians-Tigers game?
Yeah, I just looked at it. I was going to target Jose Ramirez. It's kind of steep on BetMGM right now. Just for him to get a hit is minus 250, but I paired that with Gleyber Torres for the Tigers, and you get plus 110. Gleyber Torres, plenty of offensive experience for the playoffs. They're going to need Jose Ramirez for the Guardians to at least get a couple hits, maybe even a dinger. Pair them both together, plus 110. I think that's a pretty good look.
Bob, I'm going to stick with you here. Joshua Marling wants to know, Cam Shuttler over 11.5 outs, and he says Boone can't want to rush in that Yankees bullpen.
Man, he pitched pretty well down the stretch. I think if he had a pretty good start to the season, he would have got some votes for Rookie of the Year. He's going to have a short leash. I know that the Yankees bullpen can be a little bit rocky, especially they should have won game 1 if Luke Weaver didn't have that little speed bump in the 7th inning. That's a tough call, man. Banking on this game script, I would say over. I like the form he's in, but again, as I said before, it's a brand new season. He's going to have a short leash, and Boone this may be his last game. I don't know, because he hasn't been performing, especially with the World Series loss last year.
Sniper.
The only thing I thought was a mitigating factor here is, given that it's an elimination game, could you see Will Warren coming in relief, and then it's not necessarily exposing the short bullpen arms. I know Warren's been a little bit shaky down the stretch here, so I don't know how Boone's going to piece it together, but my immediate thought on the 11.5 outs was stay away instead of pick either side.
Sniper, Jesse Long wants to know your thoughts on Suzuki over 1.5 bases at plus 145.
Yeah, he's hot right now. Even yesterday when the Cubs didn't generate any offense at all, he doubled off of Dylan Cease when Cease was looking unhittable for a second. So I like that. Ride the hot hand.
That Suzuki's so hot right now. Steve Folkerts, Bob says, thoughts on Guardians Tigers first 5 under 4 minus 118.
I don't like that with Slade Ciccone, to be honest. I could see this sneaking over just like yesterday. I feel so bad for underbettors. I was on it personally. I was like, there's something weird about this game. I'm not going to post it. Thank God I didn't, because that would have been a loss for the site. But Jack Flaherty, the most least profitable pitcher on the road. Slade Ciccone, very inconsistent. That's another stay away.
Totally agree. Like I said, I could see Flaherty coming out and surprising everybody with a bunch of zeros, but you could see him giving up like 5 runs in the first inning or something. So, and again, then there's Ciccone against a Tigers offense that's been dormant for a while, but they still have some dudes in there. Like you could see Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson hitting big home runs. So that one's, yeah, I agree. I don't want that.
PropStarz, let's go back to football. We've got a lot of questions there as well. The Big E89 says, how do we feel about Stafford over 234.5 passing yards? My initial reaction, PropStarz, is that I don't really like that. I think it's a pretty efficient number. And again, I think because they're going to be able to lean into the run game, I don't know how much Stafford we're going to see throwing it down the field. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, a couple of things that I think you should look at anytime you're looking at a quarterback: passing yards, pass rate over expected, That's how often the team is passing or running the ball neutral game environments. The Rams are a run-heavy team. They run the ball in neutral game environments. And then we look at the total here. We look at, the side here, and we know that the Rams are significant favorites. So basically, we can gather that if the game goes according to what's expected, the Rams are going to run the football a lot. So I just don't really look at this 49ers team with their offense depleted, without Brock Purdy, without all the receivers, George Kittle, being able to really push the Rams off of that. I think the Rams are going to, throw the ball early, and then we're just going to see them grind clock a lot in the second half in most outcomes. So I personally would rather see a trailing game script or a competitive game script, which I don't think we're going to get here. So not something I'm personally rushing out to play as far as Stafford is concerned. It's a long-winded way to say I think the number's efficient.
If anything, I think it's a little high. I mean, honestly, if you had blindly asked me, what do you think Matt Stafford's passing prop is for this particular game, especially on a short week, oh, by the way, I would have said 224.5. I wouldn't have thought it was in the 230s. So, I mean, honestly, just based on looking at it now, I think I like the under there. I will say this too. I mean, Jacksonville kind of had their way against the 49ers from a rushing standpoint. You don't think the Rams are going to do that as well? Go ahead, Proppy.
I totally agree. See, I do think the number is a little high as well. This 49ers defense is not the 49er defense that we're used to seeing, basically during the Kyle Shanahan era here.
They're trash right now. They don't even have Nick Bosa. I mean, this is a bad defense right now.
They've lost numerous starters. I totally agree. The Rams should have their way. The Rams offensive line has really been phenomenal, both in pass blocking, also run blocking. So Stafford's going to have a clean pocket. When he has a clean pocket, that's really when he really excels. So I expect Matthew Stafford to be highly efficient, and I expect them to run the football very effectively.
Speaking of efficient, Mac Jones over 32.5 pass attempts, minus 110, says Josh Davis. Do we like that? Again, I think that one's pretty efficient too. I would lean to the over, especially since, again, game script, I think he's going to have to pass it. And I think Mac Jones, I like Mac Jones. I think he's fine. I think he could also turn the ball over against this Rams defense once, if not twice, maybe more. I'm not 100% sure, but that's going to lend itself to more passing attempts, right? So if anything, I'd lean to the over here. Your thoughts, probably.
I would lean over, but I would also offer this. I promise you that Kyle Shanahan, when he's working on this game, does not want to see Mac Jones throw the ball 35 plus times. They want to have a very balanced attack. I will say this, though. The 49ers run plays very quickly. Okay, historically, they've been ultra efficient, but this season they're trying to, I think they've run the 4th most offensive plays in the league this season. That is by design. So while they haven't been as efficient necessarily offensively, they're trying to get the volume up. So that does lend itself to the over for Mac Jones. If you think the Rams are going to be winning this game, he will have to throw the football in order for it to be competitive. So I think the number is efficient ultimately, but I do lean over on it as well.
I need to double check this, but not only are the 49ers running plays quickly from a pace of play between down standpoint, the Rams are as well. So this is a potentially higher pace game based on, the data we have through 4 weeks. So that's interesting because that's not what I would have expected, but it's a good call out. All right, let's get to first touchdown scores. I know there was a couple questions for Mike. We've lost him. There was a first quarter question that I think he would have been all over. Philip said Rams first quarter over 6.5 at minus 120. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I do wonder what Mike has to say about it. I will have him on hopefully on FFT DFS later, Philip. I'll ask him that. Join us over on the Fantasy Football Today YouTube channel. We won't be doing it live, but that's where the show will be. Also be in your podcast feed. All right. Well, I had to pivot off Demarcus Robinson, Sniper, because you took him, but I do like this. Talk to me.
Yeah, I mean, you see all those receivers for the 49ers who are injured, and I'm including George Kittle in that, obviously, because he's a receiving tight end. So I just thought, if we're going to look at if the 49ers score first and it's not Christian McCaffrey, then Demarcus Robinson felt like the best option. And I guess we were kind of lined up on that.
We are, absolutely. And I love his contested catch ability, especially against these corners as well, potentially in the red zone. Obviously, most people think the Rams are going to score first. Totally get it. But I like the value there. I'm going to go with Kendrick Bourne, who has that relationship dating back to the Patriots days with Mac Jones. Probably a trusted target, more slot play coming from him, most likely 20-1. I kind of like that. We're going another Niner here, PropStarz.
We are indeed. I talked about him earlier. He has a favorable matchup. That's Jake Tonjes, who has been very good to his credit, or he's filled in admirably, I should say, with George Kittle on the shelf. He's been a good backup tight end. He seems to have good rapport with Mac Jones as well. He has a favorable matchup. The Rams are a little bit of a tight end fuddle. Opposing tight ends tend to get targeted a lot versus them. So at plus 2,500, I like the value here. This is in the vein of a Donald Parham. As we know, Sia likes to get these tertiary options and secondary tight ends. So I took a play from the counselor playbook here with Tonjes.
We need to find a way to bring up Donald Parham on every single show where there's a primetime game. Bob, before you give out your first touchdown score, I'm noticing Rick Funcannon has a play in college football. He says Notre Dame over team total. It's Georgia. He's talking Alabama. Don't forget about the group ride play. So in the YouTube comments, put your favorite bet of the weekend or put your favorite bet of the weekend in the Spotify comments. Make sure you get that in there so we can nominate those and put them in or vote for them on BPE Friday. All right, Berg Bets, talk to me. What do you like for first touchdown score?
Yeah, for first touchdown, I'm going a little chalky, I guess you could say. Devontae Adams, he scored in each of his last 3 games. Robert Saleh and the Niners defense will probably spend a lot of time on Puka. They're missing multiple starters in their secondary. Adams is having a little over 8 targets per game through the first 4 weeks. He also has 10 targets inside the 20 and 6 targets inside the 10. Puka can still get one, but with the high percentage of throws that are going to be towards him. But with Adams as a big red zone threat, I'll take him to get in the end zone first.
All right. And then we go to Mike McClure, who likes Blake Corum. I think this is a smart play at plus 1,800 for first touchdown. Let's see if we have any questions before we wrap things up here. Any new questions? Jeremy Rogers, Sniper, says he's on Darvish under 10.5 outs. Any commentary there?
Yeah, I think that's probably going to hit. I don't think the Padres want him to work into the 4th inning at all. I think I said it earlier, but I've been on so many shows. Maybe I didn't. It was a different show. But Michael King is kind of an X factor coming out of the bullpen for the Padres. I think they're going to kind of bridge the gap from Darvish to the late inning relievers with King. So maybe a maximum of 3 innings for Darvish, which is 9 outs. And then King takes over for a couple. So yeah, I like the under 10.5 for sure.
Let's see. Katie Taylor, who hit the Alex Bregman group ride when we did the live stream a couple of days ago. She says she likes Kerry Carpenter hits, runs, RBIs today. Bob or Sniper, any thoughts on that?
Go ahead, Berg.
I was going to give you it, Matt.
He hasn't done a ton so far in the playoffs, but man, he's such a righty masher. And I mean, remember last year it was in that ballpark when he turned around Emmanuel Clase for that big home run. So kind of feel like maybe he's due for a big moment, and Slade Ciccone is right-handed. So yeah, I'd be good with that. And you know what? If we're talking about riding the hot hand here, Katie's the hot hand because she went with Bregman in our live show 2 days ago. And then I believe he was already over it. And then he had an RBI double late in the game. So yeah. Sure, let's do it. Make that our group ride.
All right, that's Katie Taylor sponsoring our group ride yet again. Okay, let's close on this one before we bring in the recap screen. First of all, Wu-Tang 416 says Rams to win both halves plus 105. What do you think? I think it's fine. It's not a bet I'm going to make, but I think it's a good look. Go ahead, Bob.
I got one thing for you, a little appetizer before we start all the football and playoff baseball. Knicks Sixers preseason begins at noon. NBA TV. Back on my Knicks grind. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. I noticed that as well. We got the Pacers Cup. Proppy, I don't know if you remember, but I was the guy that was saying, give me the Sixers to win the East at plus, I think it was 1,300 or plus 1,200 like 2 or 3 months ago. Obviously, there's some injury concerns, but any thoughts on your Sixers this year?
Just not really. Yeah, when you're relying on Joel Embiid and Paul George, podcast Paul at this stage of their careers, hard to be very confident or bullish in the 76ers. If I were running the 76ers, I'd have shopped Joel Embiid a couple of years ago, and Paul George would have never been signed. But hindsight's 2020. So what are you going to do? They've got a couple of good young building blocks in Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain, and
they brought Quentin Grimes back on a 1-year deal.
Yep, VJ Edgecombe as well. So I would just look to develop the young guys, maybe pick up some draft capital. If a team will take a shot on Embiid, maybe pair him with LeBron and Luka or something.
Fair enough. Ben saying go Bulls. Okay, so here's what we will close with. John says Blake Corum last touchdown plus 1,400. I think that's a fine look if you want to bet that market. There was also Jeff Stenberg who said Blake Corum 50+ rushing yards, and it was like plus 350. I can't find the comment right now, but it's plus 350 or plus 325. If you believe in the game script that Vegas and the bookmakers are telling you, then it certainly would lend itself to Blake Corum being over in his rush attempts and over in his yards, and laddering him springing a long run in the midst of having 10, 11 carries potentially makes a ton of sense. Proppy, go ahead.
Yeah, just as far as Blake Corum goes, I like Blake Corum. I like what I've seen. I like the fact that the Rams are giving him more usage here. Kyron Williams has had durability concerns throughout his career, and we're playing on a short week where they're favorites, so it does lend itself to Blake Corum potentially getting an uptick in usage and carries. So I do think this does shape up well for Blake Corum tonight. I like those looks on his alt lines and his touchdowns as well.
Makes a ton of sense. J-Met says, Counselor, have you watched The Challenge? Are you caught up yet? No, now I'm 2 episodes behind. I apologize. I'm very busy down here at headquarters. Speaking of, I'll be on HQ with Claudia later today from 6 to 7. And then I'm going to make a stop by on the Underachievers show. Of course, that's that primetime show before the game. So if you're around, give that a look. I'll be on for a few minutes with that crew now that I'm down here in South Florida. And I will catch up on the challenge. Let's catch up on the recap screen, Ben. Thanks for managing this from start to finish. Demarcus Robinson over 28.5 receiving yards, minus 111. Put that on SportsLine last night. Then we go to Cubs money line, minus 110. That one is from the Sniper. We've got more baseball. Padres Cubs under 7.5 from Berg Bets. That's minus 110. And then we're back to football. Christian McCaffrey under 7.5 receptions at minus 132. And then we've got a 3-leg SGP using some alt lines. Rams money line plus under 54.5 total points plus Puka Nacua 75+ receiving yards. That SGP pays plus 110. Sportsline bets 49ers Rams under 45.5. Courtesy of Mike Tierney, that's minus 110. And Kyron Williams over 67.5 rush yards, minus 114. Courtesy of Larry Hartstein. Of course, we had a lot to say about Blake Corum as well. He's also a first touchdown scorer for Mike McClure, Devontae Adams from Bob, Jake Tonjes from PropStarz, Demarcus Robinson. I endorse this one from the Sniper, and I'll go with Kendrick Bourne at plus 2,000. And when I think of Kendrick Bourne, I think of Lieutenant Kendrick, obviously. Sniper. Giancarlo Stanton is our top MLB home run play, plus 323 versus plus 400. What a great show. We spent over 40 minutes with you. Thank you, Mike, who had to dip out. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Sniper. Thank you, PropStarz. And, of course, thank you, Ben, on the 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s. Don't forget to put your group ride nomination for NFL or college football week 5 or 6, depending on which market you're going to, in our YouTube comments or the Spotify comments. We'll see you tomorrow for BPE Friday. Maybe I'll see you later tonight for some primetime stuff over on CBS Sports HQ and the Sportsline YouTube channel. Look out for Fantasy Football Today, DFS, later today in your podcast feed. What a great show. Thanks for joining us. We rest our case.